Caroline Wozniacki remains furious at the treatment of her family at last month's Miami Open, and is seriously considering a boycott of the tournament next year. The world number 2 is incensed by the way event officials responded to her complaints about what she said were death threats made to loved ones by an especially rowdy crowd when she lost to Puerto Monica Puig. She had trouble sleeping the following week and feels let down by what she saw as an unsympathetic response from tournament director James Blake, the former top 10 player. Sitting by the Mediterranean on Wednesday, close to her Monaco home, the Australian Open champion reflected on one of the worst nights of her career, when her family felt threatened by a boisterous South American element in the Miami crowd. I slept horribly for probably 4 or 5 days after that. I wasn't at ease, said the 27-year-old Dane. I really felt awful. There was a bad feeling in my stomach. David Lee, her fiancé, was there too, and he even was like, "This is bad, this is not the way." The experience that I had in Miami was awful and hopefully something we'll never experience again. Adding insult was the official response from Blake, in his first year as tournament director, to her statement the day after the match outlining her outrage at the crowd's treatment of her loved ones. It was a curiously abrupt release that he put his name to, and seemed to question the version of events from one of the sport's most respected players. During the match, we had tournament and WTA staff as well as tournament security courtside. They never witnessed, nor were they notified of any specific threats made to the players or their families, was one excerpt. This has further antagonized Wozniacki, who referred to Blake's own history of experiencing injustice, as he was falsely arrested and wrestled to the floor by a police officer in New York 3 years ago. Obviously James Blake has been through these things himself, and I would have hoped that he would have taken a stance, but he didn't, and that's that, she said. I didn't know who wrote it, the response, I just read it. Obviously it made me a little bit upset because I didn't feel like they had the players back, and I don't feel like they did much other than just try to pretend like everything was beautiful. It was really not good, and to have David's niece and nephew come over and crying after the match and having to explain to them it's not normal and this is not the way that people should behave, it's not a good feeling. I've just kind of tried to forget the whole thing, but I think it was important that I spoke up and said something about it because I don't think it was okay. Intriguingly, the Miami Open is owned and operated by IMG, the management company with whom Wozniacki has some history, and she is particularly not a fan of one of its most influential agents, Max Eisenbud. He described Wozniacki as a journeyman after she criticized the favorable treatment given to his leading client, Maria Sharapova, on her return from a 15-month doping suspension. She decided not to make further complaint. At the end of the day I feel like it was a waste of my time because clearly they weren't going to do anything about it and I was already really upset and the kids were upset, everyone was upset. However, the tournament, which next year moves to a new site away from its longtime home of Key Biscayne, may now find itself without one of the biggest drawcards in the women's game because she is clearly inclined not to return. I just have to make a decision next year on whether I feel like I want to go back or not. I haven't made that decision yet, she said. Her close friend Serena Williams boycotted the Indian Wells event for 14 years due to crowd behavior, so that may be a topic on the agenda when they next catch up. Wozniacki was unable to visit her at home in Florida last month, but they remain in close touch. We're talking, calling and texting. We were supposed to meet up a couple of times but it's not easy, we're both really busy. She's doing great and the baby's doing great. I'm getting photos all the time. On the current debate about whether players coming back from childbirth should be allowed to be seated above their ranking, Wozniacki feels that to achieve consistency there probably needs to be some equivalence with players returning from long-term injury. Let's say Serena got injured, I feel like does she deserve to be seated when she comes back? If the general overall thing is yes, then I think being pregnant you deserve to come back as well and be seated. It's just I feel that you need to do both, whether you're pregnant, and that's obviously great news and happy news, or injured, where it's just unlucky and something happened. Having spent so long pursuing a Grand Slam title, the Dane now feels she is more likely to channel her energies towards lifting the game's major titles. I think in the situation I have been in, I have basically won every other tournament that there is to play on the tour. And being there for so many years I have beaten everyone on tour at some point or another. This, Australia, was the last thing on my resume that was missing and something that kept me hungry. Before I would go into every tournament and take things equally, but I think now I'm looking after my body and trying to peak for the Grand Slams, give it a go and see if I can get more if it's possible. If it's not, then I've still done an amazing job and done everything that I hoped for when I started. I'm in a great position because I'm feeling healthy. Feel like I'm hitting the ball well and it's just about getting it all together. We have the clay season coming up and I love the grass, so I'm hoping my 4th round thing at Wimbledon will finally be done. I think I've been there 6 or 7 or 8 times, I lost count after a while, so it's exciting. It's a great stage of my career and I'm looking forward to what's to come. Carolyn Wozniacki was speaking at the launch of her ambassadorship of new blockchain app Limpo, which motivates people to pursue healthy lifestyles.